maybe we should talk about the life game. I met Martin Gardner a long time ago. He just died last year. And I used to go and see him a fair amount. And one time I told him about this life game, which was quite astonishing. And this was a recreation that we played in the common room of the math department in Cambridge. And it had very simple rules, and it behaved unpredictably. What happens is you have little objects, you model the world by a plane ruled into squares, and you throw some counters down, more or less at random, and then it just evolves. If there are 3 counters next to a given one, it's rather peculiar. You have 3 parents in this game, and if there are exactly 3 counters next to a given one, something is born there next time. But it only survives if there are exactly 2 or 3 counters. This game became tremendously popular. In fact, Martin told me, this is Martin Gardner I'm referring to, that Scientific American got more mail about it than about any previous article, except the first one he wrote. And the first one got more mail about it than any previous article in Scientific American. And it was about hexaflexagons. Actually, Richard Guy, who's a friend of mine, who's now 94, he wrote a little article about me once, and he said John Conway is celebrated, celebrated for discovering life at Cambridge, he said, which was some kind of backhanded comment about my colleagues, I suppose. But anyway, this game called Life is played on an infinite board ruled into squares. I might as well add this one here. And you start off, each square is called alive, in which case I'm writing an X in it, or dead, which is, I leave it blank. And actually, I can write something other than the X if it's alive. And to survive, a thing needs to have 2 or 3 neighbours. It needs to be alive.
So these 2 on the edges will die off?
Those creatures will die off. So let's just put a little sort of circle around them to indicate that they're getting old. They're going to die soon. But this one has 3 neighbours. The neighbours of the square in the middle are the 8 squares around it. So this one has 3 neighbours that are live. It's times 0, by the way.
Corner 1 has 2.
This corner 1 has 2, so that's okay. This has 3. This has 3. But okay, so those 3 survive. And then the conditions for birth are that you be in an empty square that has exactly 3. For birth, it's exactly 3. So this thing here, there's going to be a happy event in this square in a moment. And there's another one here. Okay? And if you think about it, those are the only squares that are not live at the moment, but will be next time. So what we do is we rub out these, because they're dead now, and we elevate these dots to crosses, and there we are. The time is now 1. And then we do it again. So what happens is this one has 4 neighbours, 1, 2, 3, 4, so it'll die. This one has 1 neighbour, so it dies. This one dies of overcrowding in the middle. This one dies of isolation, even though they're right next to each other. Nothing else dies.
And this one.
There's something going to be born there,
and
something there. Hope I've got that right. So now we rub out these poor corpses, and we elevate these to crosses, and the time is 2. It turns out, well, let me just show you where we'll be at time 6. Let's just remember that this is where we are at time 2. I'm just redrawing it. And I'm going to emphasize this portion. And then I'm going to delete it all and insert rather, where we'll be at time 6, and it is here. This is where we are at time 6. And that's exactly the same shape as we were at time 2, but it's moved down one. Okay. So this little beastie will sort of walk across the plane. And I've always regretted the name I gave it. It's a glider. And that was called not because it glides, but because it moves by glide reflection. But let's not worry about that. If you actually see them on a computer screen going at a reasonably slow speed, they look like ants, and I wish I'd called it the ant. I mention this because it's what convinced us that life was interesting. Now, what do I mean by us, and what do I mean by interesting? By us, well, I'm one of us, and there was a floating collection of graduate students, and we used to tinker with these ideas every coffee time or tea time. And we did this for about 18 months, every now and then trying a new rule. We were never quite happy with the effects of the rule, but eventually we were. And I still remember the day on which we found this object, the glider, because my friend Richard Guy, who's around, active at age 94, he had been given the job of looking after the small configurations that weren't near the majority action, so to speak. And he said, come over here, my bit's walking. And so we came over there. His bit had fallen off the table. We used to play this on go boards, on counters, coffee room tables. And every now and then something stretched beyond the confines of the table. So we came over there and looked at his bit, and it was this thing, and it was indeed walking. And that excited us very much because we finalized on this set of rules. We knew something interesting was happening here. And eventually we proved that this life game can do an arbitrary computation too. It's quite astonishing. You can set up a finite configuration and ask it to look for solutions of things. I mean, what used to be the standard example was Fermat's last theorem. Do there exist two perfect nth powers that add up to a larger one?
So you just set up the
Well,
configuration?
you could, in principle, set up a kind of computer, but it's not a real computer, it's a thing made out of a life configuration, and set it searching for triples of numbers, quadruples of numbers, a, b, c, and n, such as a to the n plus b to the n equals c to the n, and n is at least 3, and A and B are less than C, and so on.
And your life game would unfortunately go on forever.
Well, yes. I mean, it would go on forever unless there's a solution to Fermat's last theorem, when it would stop. And we proved that any mathematical question of a sufficient degree of precision could be phrased as, does this life configuration last indefinitely or not? And you could devise a particular life configuration to do it. So that's captured in the phrase, life is universal.
that was another really exciting period of my life, the life period of my life, so to speak.